Okay, so I wanted to show you how to get last names and first names isolated when it's a little bit more complicated to isolate the first from the last name. So here I have a list of estates, and so if we look through the list of estates, you can see that some of these are just, first, middle, last name, or first last name, or first full middle name, last name. Down here we have Isaac Stevenson, comma, state name, and then in parentheses estimated. That's going to be the most complicated form. We also have this one here that's just a state name, this one here that's just estimated. So the simplest thing to do, if you're going to do it in Excel, is to just go across, and the first thing you want to do is take off the parentheses. So what you have to do to take off the parentheses is you need to do a right string, because the parentheses always appear on the right. So we want to say we're going to start on the right of A2 and go for the length of A2 until the spot where we find the parentheses and add 1, right? Okay. And then, since there's not always going to be parentheses in all these things, we have to use the if function to give us two different sets of outputs. One if the if condition is true, and one if it's false. So the first argument in the if function is this thing I have here, not is error right, all the way up to this comma. That's the condition. And if that's true, I want to print right A2 length A2 minus find A2 plus 1. And if it's not true, I want to find the quotation marks. I don't actually want to find them. I want to print just a blank string, because otherwise it's going to print error. So we're going to print the blank string there. And also I have this not statement here to begin the condition. I could have also not used the not statement, and then I would have just switched the true and false outcomes. So what you print when it's true and false, you would just reverse them because you get rid of the not. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do if not is error, and then what we're going to say is if it's not an error to go from the right of A2 and find a left parentheses right here, then if that's not an error, then print what you find when you go from the right until you find that parentheses. And if it is an error, then just print nothing, because this column here is what's in the parentheses, right? That's what you do there. And then I want to say, well, what's left in the string without the parentheses? And so this is going to be very similar. It'll be if the parentheses had been there, and I've just bolded the ones I'm going to show you. The bold is not anything special. If the parentheses are there, then what you want to do is you want to print the string up until the parentheses. So we're going to go from the left. So we're going to say, forget about what the condition is, but we're going to say we're going to print this part here. Trim left A2 to find D2 inside A2 minus 1. Okay. And if it's not true, we just want to print A2. And then the condition is if it's not an error to print the string where you find D2 in A2. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. And the advantage here is that my thing that I'm looking for in the middle here is actually going to be the same as what I print if the condition is true. So if it's not an error. So that's not really much of an advantage. I'll show you a couple other ways to do it, and those are the other bolded cells. Another way you could do it is you could just say, if it's not an error, to find that parentheses inside a string and then, do some operations on that string. So if we have an error in the find, then going from the left until we find that is also an error, and then trimming that is also an error. So that's another way you could do it. You could also do this one, where you are going to do the same thing, where you look for D6 and A6. So I think this is actually the same as the first one here. Okay, and then down here with the Anthony Brady and the John Jacob Astor, I've tried a different way, where we just say if it's not an error to just find D15 and A15, then print the trimmed string where you go from the left until you find it, etc. And then here, we're actually just going to say if it's not an error to just find the left parentheses. So actually, if you're using Excel, this is one of the only ones that's actually going to work, where if you just find the parentheses. Because here, if you find D15 and A15, and, D15 is blank, it's just a blank string, or a blank entry, then Excel treats this differently from OpenOffice, where Excel will actually find a blank string within a blank string, but OpenOffice won't find a blank string within a blank string, at least today on this exact version I'm using. Maybe they'll update it in the future, but as of right now, these are actually going to be differently implemented in Excel and OpenOffice. So that's how you do that. Okay, and then moving on, we've taken off the parentheses, but as you can see, we still have this Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania for some of them. And then we're actually just going to do the same thing, where we find commas, right? So you're going to see that comma right here. So we're going to find that comma we're going to do the same thing with the not, is error, and so on and so on. Okay, take that off, and then I do nothing in this column. And then here, again, it's the same thing as the last spreadsheet where we have the last name last and the first name and the middle initial before that. So here we're going to be looking for the very last word. So we're going to do the same trick I did in the other video where you separate off the last word. So this is the same string operation here. And then you also take the remainder where you go the other way, you read from the left, and that gives you the first and the middle name. Okay, so good luck with that.